Okay, Snarky Scientist PhD back with you. Second piece of basic immunology, and this one is in some ways even crazier than the first. So last time we talked about this breadth of your immune response, how your immune system actually breaks your DNA, splices it together in a messed up way in order to generate this huge amount of diversity, and it can respond to everything. Obviously, as I mentioned last time, this is a problem. You are part of everything. How does your immune system guarantee, sometimes this slips, but in general, how does your immune system guarantee that you won't react against yourself? You won't develop an autoimmune disease? This is a huge issue because, again, if this slips even just a little bit, if this slipped one time in 1,000, every single one of us would have a major autoimmune disease because there are millions of different proteins in your body. Each and every one of them is potentially a target. You've got to eliminate the ability of your body to recognize all of them in order to not have an autoimmune disease. And most of us don't have an autoimmune disease. Even those who do, it tends to be a very small cluster of proteins, not everything. So your immune system does something very, very impressive and very, very funky. Out of this giant, enormous diversity of immune function, immune receptors that can recognize everything in the universe, it punches out a hole that looks like you. There is a U-shaped hole in the universe of what your immune system can respond to. And it does this by having the T cells. They're called that because they're thymus-derived cells. Folks figured out that they come from the bone marrow. They go to an organ called the thymus where they mature before they go out into circulation and function in your body. So the immature ones go to the thymus and they get educated there. And this is something called central tolerance. It's a huge part of the basic function of the immune system because, again, you don't want autoimmune diseases, you don't want self-reactivity. So what happens when these cells go to the thymus and they're in this state where they're immature? They are hyper responsive. They're like kids on a sugar high. They are bouncing around all over the place and their receptors are super active. So they've got all this diversity of receptors. The receptors are super active, more than they would be when the cells have matured. And in the thymus, there's a function that is absolutely wacky. There is a protein called AIRE, A-I-R-E, autoimmune regulator of expression. That protein shuts down the normal regulation that your body has of only making things in the right place. So your pancreas produces insulin to help you deal with blood sugar. No other tissue in the body does that except for the thymus. Your salivary glands, they produce spit. There's particular proteins in there that's not made anywhere else except in your thymus. Your thymus makes everything that's made in your body. Now, in very, very small quantities, it's not useful, it's all kept local, but the purpose of that is that this organ, the thymus, expresses, in theory, everything that could and would be expressed in your entire body, regardless of location, regardless of timing. So it takes away all of the tissue-specific expression, all the location-specific expression, all the developmentally specific expression. Certain proteins are only made when you're a kid, when you're an adult. Everything is made in the thymus. Everything, everything, everything. And these hyperactive immature cells, T cells, see all of that. And if they recognize anything and get stimulated by it, this is yourself, they get overstimulated and they die. So your immune system literally makes this huge diversity and then kills off any cell that recognizes you, or at least that's the plan. Sometimes, again, that fails and that can lead to an autoimmune disease. There are other factors that have to do with this protection, what we call tolerance, where you can't attack yourself or shouldn't be able to attack yourself. We'll talk about those later, but this idea of central tolerance, where your T cells, the master governors of what is self and non-self, the main regulator is the thymus killing off any immature T cells that could recognize you so that you've got this U-shaped hole in your immune response universe, what they call the repertoire. All right. That's not enough to protect you from reaction to your food, because your food is not part of you, and we'll talk about that next.